Well, thank you everyone for joining Pearson's Licensed HN networking event. For you who don't know me, my name is Stuart Abrahamson and I'm the Senior Manager for Professional Development and Engagement, and I'll be your host for today. It is with great excitement that you're able to join us today, as this is our first live event for licensed HNs anyway, since the beginning of the pandemic. And since the development of the new license team, we've had Raman join us this year, Anna, who joined midway through last year, and I joined at the end of 2021, being with Pearson for a few years, but with the license team since the end of last year. But regretfully, I need to inform you that my team is down at the moment. Unfortunately, they are suffering from different illnesses. Raman Ganani, who is our licensed HN partnership manager, who is the whiz behind all this, she's pulled everything together today, so it's been a fantastic effort, along with Anna Batty, who is our higher education PD and engagement analyst. As I said, are both unwell and they've passed on their apologies. But as they say, the show must go on. And if there are any glitches or anything throughout today, you can direct all your grief to me. Before moving on, I'd like to say we have a fantastic representation in today's audience. And I'd just like to go through those, but with in no particular order. We have Coventry, Bolton, Teesside, Nottingham Trent, Portsmouth, Cumbria, Sunderland, Northampton, Plymouth, Birmingham City, University of Wales, Trinity St David, Salford, Wolverhampton, London Met, and De Montfort. I did have a practice with the pronunciation of a couple of those with my colleague earlier, so hopefully I passed that test. So a very warm welcome to all of you. We do have, as I said, a packed agenda today, and so I just want to quickly go through that agenda. So hopefully it'll come up on my screen now. My computer's just taking a little bit longer to respond, so hopefully. So we're going to start with Jane Baker, who's the Vice President for Higher Ed and International, and she's going to have an opening address before moving on to Wade, who will be talking about HN license and the global agenda. From 11 to 11:25, we have HTQs, as you know, very, very popular topic at the moment, and we'll also be exploring the approval process for that. This will be followed by our customer experience. So we've got a special, very, very special guest today in Brendan Carlson from Nottingham Trent University. We'll follow that with a break, and then we'll come back from 11:55 to discuss or to share with you our custom design higher nationals and HN Flex. We have a few updates as well in terms of the license higher nationals, and we want to go through some of our support too, and that's with HN Global. And we want to round out today's session with an open forum talking about some good practice, and then Yasmin Pitter will be coming in, who is our Deputy Director, on some closing remarks. So before I hand over to Jane, I'd just like to let you know, please keep yourselves on mute. We do have a chat function today, so please put any questions in there. We'll do our best to answer those. And as I said, we do have an open forum this afternoon, so it'd be great if if you can come off mute and share some of the good practice there that you've been experiencing with the licensed HNs. So without further delay, I'm going to pass over to Jane.
Thank you, Stuart, and hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining this session. I'll try and keep my part brief because you've got a packed agenda. So as Stuart says, I'm Jane and I lead our higher education and our international business for the Workforce Skills Division of Pearson. So our focus is really on that, delivering qualifications, education, training, services that are going to equip the workforce of the future. We're really proud that we work with more than 30 HEIs, delivering our higher nationals under a license in England, and it's great that so many of you could be here today. You'll be only too well aware that there's a real government drive in the UK to increase participation in level 4 and 5. In fact, there are only 10% of adults aged 18 to 65 who hold a level 4 qualification as their highest achievement. And this means that the UK lags significantly behind other economies. And it's impacting both the ability of the UK to be competitive in driving productivity, but it also can be a key issue in terms of levelling up and ensuring that our population is able to access high quality, well-paid careers for their futures. If you look back through history, there's actually been a decline in the number of level 4-5 students since the beginning of the millennium. Between 2001 and 2014-15, in fact, there was a 45% decline in the number of students taking sub-degree programs. Excuse me. And so our recent policy changes, which are really driving the need for growth in level 4-5, perhaps started in December 2018, when the Gatsby Foundation published a paper entitled The Missing Middle. And this set out some of the issues behind those declines in level 4 and 5 and the need to grow our participation in those levels of qualifications. This was followed in 2019 by the Auger Review. And part of that Auger Review you'll be well familiar with also set out the need for us to drive level 4 and 5 participation. And then we skip forward into 2020 and beyond, and higher technical education comes onto the landscape. And this education policy was really announced to ensure that we had higher technical qualifications, which would be approved by IFATE and would be recognisable, employer-led qualifications to really help people and industry with the skills that they need. But the great thing about higher technical qualifications is they're really designed to build on the foundations of some of the great qualifications that we currently have in the market, such as foundation degrees and, of course, higher nationals, which are already high quality, employer-focused level 4-5 programs. And by delivering these level 4 and 5 programs, you're really able to allow students to scaffold their learning and their achievement by gaining a level 4 higher national certificate, building up as they need to through a level 5 higher national diploma, and on to a level 6 degree if that's what they want to do and what they need to do for their futures. We're really proud that there are now more students in England undertaking a higher national than any other level 4-5 qualification. And we're also proud of the history of higher nationals, which are actually more than 100 years old and were designed in 1921 to really address the skills issue post the First World War. So I wish you well for today's session. I hope there's going to be a great debate. We're really proud to partner with our universities, and we hope that you find this of great value. Thanks, Stuart. Back to you.
Many thanks, Jane. 100 years. That's amazing. So thank you very much.
Over 21.
Thanks, Jane. All right. So I'll pass over now to Wade, who once my screen decides to respond, is our stakeholder manager for HEIs and ministries.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So I'm Wade. I work in the workforce qualifications team. So my role is pretty much working with universities to recognise and understand these qualifications. And I realise the majority of the room today will have a good understanding of the qualifications we're talking about. But essentially my role is to build the bridge between our qualifications and university progression. But today I'm sort of going to take you through a quick recap, because I realise we do have some people on the call that may not be so familiar with these qualifications, who may not necessarily yet be partnering with Pearson on a recognition or a licensing basis. I'm going to be looking at sort of level 4 and 5 in today's education reform. So what does the sector look like in the context of level 4 and 5? So really sort of touching on the surface of what's going on today and impacting level 4 and 5 qualifications or high nationals, and some of the key themes that those reforms are addressing, and then sort of how these qualifications will aid you or suit you, or potentially provide benefits to you and your students in the sector as well. And of course, you'll probably hear the word HTQ mentioned a few times today, so I'll be mentioning that on a very sort of surface level and not diving in too much. But we will be talking about how we can support you in the provision of these qualifications as well. So this is just a quick recap. Our qualifications at level 4 and 5 are Higher National Certificate and the Higher National Diploma, typically 120 credits and 240 credits studied full-time over 1 and 2 years, respectively. Our qualifications are developed with the best cocktail for developing a qualifications. We have industry, higher education, academics, students. We have representatives and subject experts from Pearson, starting with the writing of that qualification all the way through qualification submission to Ofqual for validation. And our current standings, we have around 500 institutions delivering these qualifications worldwide, which includes further education colleges, private colleges, and we have currently just over 30 university partners as well. So what's more unique about the licensing provision is that it's quite flexible. So the majority of our high nationals are Pearson awarded, but our high nationals under license either come with our trademark agreement or our intellectual property agreement. The trademark agreement is where universities have taken the high national brand and provided their own content, so created their own HNC at level 4 and 5 and used their own curriculum, their own content. But the high national brand is very sort of familiar with employers and students seeking sort of level 4 and 5 study. Then sort of step up to that is using our intellectual property, which allows you to deliver straight off the shelf with Pearson content. So any sort of qualifications we develop, you have at your disposal. And it's quite a unique provision because we only allow, or it's sort of, I guess it's quite exclusive to organisations with degree awarding powers. So those that license are any institution that has degree awarding powers, and we work with universities in only specifically on licensing. Can we go to the next one, please, Stuart? So that's the recap, and please also post your questions in the chat. I think there's one already up. I'm not sure if that's for me, but I'll be monitoring throughout the day anyway, so I'll be here for the rest of the event. So these are some of sort of the major points that have been happening over the last few years across the sector. So you've probably been speaking about this within your own institutions, but these are some of the bills and reforms that have been put towards the sector. And I just wanted to sort of mention on each of these reforms about the how they impact or how they reflect level 4 and 5 study. And there seem to be some key themes that they all address. And that's either an increased skills base, so looking at the nationwide skills shortage that most of these papers are addressing, or improving access. So how we're looking at social mobility and widening participation, and how we can, as awarding bodies, institutions, and degree awarding organisations support that, and also enhancing quality for students. So looking at qualification outcomes, choices, and ensuring that if a student's taken a qualification, they also gain the right credentials to become employable. So first up, we had the level 4 and 5 review of higher technical education. Started a while back, and I guess the main point to come out of that paper was the creation of HTQs, and that's the second mention, but you'll have a whole section on it later. I feel like old school Chris Tarrant from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We're not going to give you that just yet. So this paper, we looked at high quality, employer focused, delivered well, qualifications that ticked all the boxes. How could we improve study at level 4 and 5? Really allow students to have good direction, and giving them a guarantee to achieve better outcomes, and ensuring there was diversity of choice. I can't remember which minister said this. I'm pretty sure it's the Minister for Higher Education, but there was a quote around degrees not necessarily being the primary qualification of choice, and there should be more choice at level 4 and 5 for students progressing from level 3. And one of the bigger themes around the paper was, you know, the employer demand and lack of skilled candidates. So how can we as educators and qualification providers support that goal? But as the main point coming out of the level 4 and 5 review, just to paint the picture of this conversation, was the creation of Htqs. Then had the post-16 skills, the skills bill, which is more of a stronger look at level 3, but with any qualification between 1 and 7, it's quite important to look at the entry and exit. So, you know, what can a student do with that qualification, or what do they need to get onto that qualification? And that's specifically in the context of level 4 and 5. We had the creation of T levels. So currently, you know, I always know you've most likely been looking at T levels yourselves. The qualifications at the moment are hosting low volumes, but they have been strongly backed by funding and mentioned a lot in government. We all know that if something's backed by funding, it's going to be pushed, and they will exist, and T levels are coming. And these students will be needing progression, although these qualifications are quite employer focused. Students will seek higher education. I think the DfE have actually been working with universities directly on providing progression pipeline for T-level students. And if you look at the progression profiles on the DfE website, you'll see that Htqs and level 4 and 5 qualifications are quite prominently mentioned as a progression tool for students with level 3 qualifications, specifically T-levels. And the next part to come out of that paper was the lifelong learning lifelong learning loan, lifelong learning entitlement. That's quite a mouthful. For students, you know, post 18 education, looking at modular study or full qualifications around level 4 to 6, coming in at, I think it's 2025 at the moment. But students will be eligible for funding post 18 to come back to education. And then we had the org review, which is something that's still very much on the cards, being talked about. Lots of themes in here, but you know, some of the main ones that we'll talk about today were the minimum requirements for students and a review of low outcome courses. So I mentioned that around how level 4 and 5 can support students that are from sort of an access background as well. So that's why this is in here. And there's lots of echoing of the level 4 and 5 review actually in this, sort of backing up what was said in the level 4 and 5 review around student financial reforms for, you know, mentioning finance for kite marks qualifications, hinting at, you know, will these be preferred qualifications and funded qualifications moving forward. There's a lot around supporting disadvantaged groups, specifically those with low socioeconomic backgrounds, with more grants, more funding. And then more suspected funding for institutions specialising in these programs, like the Institutes of Technology. And then, of course, we had the Levelling Up paper. The main sort of themes of this paper around enhancing productivity and challenging unfairness in areas where there was low productivity and unfairness. But the main point, the main aim to come out of this was by 2030, the number of people successfully completing high quality skills training will have increased from 200,000 training annually, driven by 80,000 more people completing courses in the lowest skilled areas. So looking at really trying to bolster skills where skills aren't being learned. A lot more themes in the Levelling Up paper, but I'm not sure I can link life expectancy or pride in where you live to level 4 and 5 studies. So plenty of aims, but the main one was looking at, you know, having 200,000 more skilled students. And once again, most of those themes, most of those reforms are underpinning skill shortage, access, and employability. On to the next one, please, Stuart. So I just want to talk about those key themes and where sort of level 4 and 5 sits, and how the sector's sort of been reacting to that as well. You've seen widening participation. We saw, you know, some of the reforms. We had the Levelling Up aims, more finance available, and we've seen that universities are starting to recognise more level 4 and 5 credentials. You see more universities have a direct policy for HNC and HND entry. From our perspective anyway, we're working with more universities in recognising those qualifications and putting in more guidance for students. In terms of social mobility, you have things like the lifelong learning entitlement, and diversifying qualification options, so not just pitching the degree route as the one main option. And you've seen universities sort of reacting to this already, but you've seen the creation of more top-up programs to attract learners that might be in work or potentially later to education, so coming back to education or a bit older, or from low socioeconomic backgrounds where the HND route tends to be cheaper. And we also see some sort of flexible programs popping up to suit learners with level 4 and 5 qualifications as well. Like I believe the University of Portsmouth have Learning at Work, which is very flexible study. You study online, you need to be in work, but they're very good with their policy for level 4 and 5 learners. And of course, in terms of employability and skills, we have the creation of HTQs, seeing more IoTs appearing, and there's plenty of student finance reform. Next one, please, Stuart. So I just wanted to quickly touch upon some of the main roles in how level 4 and 5 qualifications sort of fit into this area, how they could be beneficial. And this is sort of in relation to what your position is. You may be a recogniser of level 4 and 5. You may be a delivery organisation of level 4 and 5 qualifications. So you may already be a licensing partner of higher nationals, or you may be considering this. And you may also be looking to expand your admissions policies on level 4 and 5 qualifications. But here are some of the benefits that I've sort of thought reacted to or could support some of the reforms and play a part, how higher nationals can play a part in that. Firstly, a recruitment tool. Not only if you're providing these qualifications, you're broadening choice of higher education for students seeking study at your institution, but you're also attracting different types of learners, those that might be seeking more flexible study. So pretty much building a new pipeline of learners from level 3 all the way to your degree programs. And of course, if you're providing these qualifications, then that's a really good encouragement for your policy at an admissions level to suit level 4 and 5 learners applying directly towards your degree, so attracting a new pipeline of non-typical entry to HE. And these are also higher education experienced students who are already studying level 4 and 5 and are just seeking that final step. Mentioned the reforms at level 3, but delivering level 4 and 5 qualifications, or HNDs or HTQs, are the encouragement for T-level students to progress. So we're looking at providing a new qualification to allow students to enter your organisation, backed by support from the DfE with their progression mapping. The financial and risk side of things sort of overlaps with flexibility. This, as I mentioned before, you provide an alternative route into higher education for students. There's been sort of an implement of funding could be delivered, could be applied to these qualifications. So you'll be delivering funded qualifications, but for your students requiring flexible study, pricing tends to be lower. So it's really helping with accessibility, but also the certificating ability of these qualifications allows learners to study at their own pace. And the flexibility is actually for both delivery partners and students. So I already mentioned the types of models you have with higher nationals. You could take the brand, which is the trademark agreement. You could take the intellectual property and deliver our content, which, if it's a HTQ, will also you'll be eligible to take the quality mark. And it really takes away the friction from looking at this yourself. So developing your own content or going through the submission yourself. And of course, I think collaboration was quite strongly mentioned, the level 4 and 5 review, as good practice. And with these qualifications, they're highly recognised by employers. They really support student outcomes and accessibility. So whether you're looking at delivering these qualifications in your own site, or sub-siting and working with a college, or training the workforce, there are lots of areas where you could collaborate with stakeholders in this area. And that quite strongly links to the brand recognition of higher nationals. They're very well much recognised by employers. We develop all of our qualifications with employers in mind, and the new HTQs link strictly to an occupational standard, but we've been developing qualifications with employers and also addressing local needs for a very long time with these qualifications. And then just a couple of final points as well, just to summarise. I think I've only got a couple of minutes left. I'm not sure if I'm leaving time for questions, but I'll be here for the rest of the talk. Just to summarise, that in terms of some of the points we've mentioned, these qualifications pretty much provide skilled graduates with employer relevant credentials, really addressing that levelling up agenda. The role of HEIs was more around research engines in this area, but I think delivering or awarding higher nationals as a licensed provider really allows you to play a part in this and give HEIs a different angle to take part. Rather than being the research engines, you're actually supporting your local colleges, you're potentially supporting your local employers, really strongly linking to that collaboration I mentioned earlier. In terms of social mobility, delivering level 4 and 5 qualifications is quite attractive for local learners and employers, really providing that route for students that aren't thinking about going elsewhere, that may want to study with you locally. You'll be providing progression for your own level 5 qualifications, so that may open up doors for students with level 4 or 5 qualifications or HNDs from elsewhere, particularly internationally. You may see students with level 5 qualifications wanting to come to the UK, and you'll already be providing that progression. And you're also allowing them to have flexible currency in the world of education as well. So if you're providing HNCs and HNDs, students can work with that. They can bank that credit, and it gives them options and more opportunities and more choice. And just lastly, in terms of widening participation, just on some of the areas above, I already mentioned that providing these qualifications give you more options for students to enter higher education, but you're also increasing, you'll open up a pipeline of a more diverse recruitment demographic, students that may not necessarily be considering HE straight away. So yeah, that's all I had to say, but please post your questions in the chat. I'm not sure if we're doing an unmute yourself and ask away, but that's me.
Thank you. I mean, if there's a question that someone wants to raise at this point, we've probably got 30 seconds or so we could allow. Otherwise, as you say, you can post in the chat. Also, I failed to mention at the beginning of the presentation that we'll make the recording available along with this presentation. So, and we can provide the contacts that have been on the call today as well, and you can get in touch with them directly. But if there are no questions. Okay, thank you very much, Wade. As I said, lots of information there, but we can make this available after the event today. So next we have on the call, once my presentation is allowing me to, there we go, now it's going to skip ahead, isn't it? We have Rebecca Mamali, who's our Head of Higher Education Research and Qualifications, and she's going to do a deeper dive into higher technical qualifications, and I'm going to also add my piece in terms of from the license provision. So thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thanks, Stuart, and hello everyone. Really nice to see everyone here today. So as Stuart said, I'm going to talk in a bit more depth on the process that we've been through as an organisation to get our higher national qualifications recognised as higher technical qualifications, and a bit about the process that we've been through. I also want to take you through some of the qualifications that we've got approved, and also some of the qualifications that are currently being prepared for submission. So a bit of background to really sort of throw some light on what are higher technical qualifications. This is a more confounding question than you might think. But essentially, the higher technical qualification is not a qualification type in and of itself. So the way that we look at it is that the higher national is still the higher national, but the HTQ is a sort of kite mark. So once you've been through the approvals process with the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education successfully, you get that seal of approval. So that's really what the HTQ means. The higher national is still what it is. It's still the higher national qualification. So the reason why this has all sort of come to be is that in 2017, the DfE started to look at level 4 and 5 education in England specifically, and really to ask themselves, why is it that there's sort of quite low uptake really of level 4 and 5 qualification types like foundation degrees, higher nationals and other types of qual, when actually in other countries that it's quite a popular level of education and leads to good outcomes. So in England, only 10% of the adult population has a level 4 and 5 as their highest qualification. That, given the benefits of qualifying at 4 and 5 in various sectors, not least wage benefits, that, there's been some studies on that. That seems a crazily low percentage. So DfE paid attention, and they're putting in a raft of measures over the past few years to address the issue. And one of those measures was to implement a qualification approvals process. So this is designed really to ensure that qualifications at level 4 and 5 that are high quality, higher technical, are meeting certain criteria as set out by IFATE, who own the process and the standards really. And one of those things that has to be looked at are the alignment to occupational standards as owned by IFATE and defined by route panels, employer route panels. And actually those occupational standards are shared with the higher apprenticeship frameworks standards, I should say, as well. So there's a real drive to align qualifications with employer needs, which is a good thing. We feel we have always done that, but this is just another kind of layer, I guess, of rigor to ensure that this is happening. And as part of that process, we also have to gather a lot of employer evidence. So there's a great deal of engagement with employers anyway throughout the HN development process, but documenting that has become increasingly important so that we can ensure that that goes forward. And it is a very, very rigorous process with much to document. So I'd like to think that we have taken the pain out of it for some of our partners. So we're very committed to getting Htq seal of approval for HNs. And we, as I've said, we feel that HNs really do have many of the hallmarks of high quality Htq anyway. Employer engagement, also alignment to higher education standards. So we work with the FHEQ. We look at subject benchmark statements for things like progression up to level 6. So we try to ensure that whilst we're aligning to employer needs, we're not losing the HE-ness of the qualifications in the process. So can I have the next slide, please, Stuart? So what progress have we made to date? Well, we were very happy to say that we submitted into the first window for IFATE approval, and we were successful in getting our higher nationals in computing approved as Htq. So we're very busy preparing and helping providers prepare for first teach this September. So IFATE sets the first teach date, so it would be impossible to teach an Htq in cycle 1 earlier than this September. So this is the big launch, and we're busily approving centres and helping them prepare. So that was great news. We made a range of cycle 2 submissions. I will go into more detail on the next slides about how we did. But cycle 2 opened up the construction route, also health and science, and again, digital. So a broader raft of HNs we could put forwards in those windows. Cycle 3, we are slap bang in the middle of it. We're actually coming close to the end of it. Really important cycle for us. It's engineering and manufacture has opened. This is one of our flagship sectors, hugely important for the HN brand and sort of student base. And we're also looking at qualifications in business and administration as well. So very busy working towards the submission deadline of the end of July. Can I have the next slide, please, Stuart? So a very quick look at the calls that we've had approved and the ones that we've got in the pipeline. So this is the HND in computing for England. This was the first Htq. This is a pathway to qualification. Every pathway in the qualification aligns to a separate occupational standard. So there's 6 in total, and we cover off pretty much all of the big ones, the big occupational standards available. So as you can see, there's a very broad range of standards covered there. One of the tests, let's say, that IFATE uses, that if you do have a pathway to qualification of this type, you cannot submit it if not every pathway aligns to a standard. So a student can't be allowed to take a route through a qualification that has an Htq kite mark that allows them any route through that doesn't align in some way to a standard. So they're very serious about this. This is the acid test for them. Can I have the next slide, please, Stuart? So in cycle 2, we're delighted to say that we've had 8 construction qualifications successfully approved in 4 separate subsector areas, if you like. So anyone familiar with our construction qualifications will see that a number of these are disaggregated pathways. So we've gone down that route now where we're taking the pathways and making them separate qualifications. It makes more sense really in terms of processes, in terms of visibility of specialism, etc. And we've also got the modern methods of construction qualification, which was previously future homes, focused very much on future home building. And we designed and developed that with George Clark's institution, Moby. But we've made the decision with them that we want to broaden that out and make it more about sort of sustainable building practices across the piece. So that is now broadened out, available to everybody, and Htq kite marked. Can I have the next slide, please, Stuart? So some more successfully approved, and some of these are hot off the press actually. The HND in digital technologies, this is another computing digital route qualification that we've had approved. We actually developed this with the South Central Institute of Technology. It was famous for its Bletchley Park campus. So really great piece of development there, great employer engagement, great provider engagement, and yeah, really proud that that is also signed off. We've got an additional occupational standard covered off in there, which is digital community manager. And then we've just heard actually that our HND in healthcare professions support and our HNC in community coaching have also been approved. So really delighted, particularly with the healthcare professions support HND. That has been a slightly harder push, I guess, because of the nature of the sector and their sort of historical choices around qualifications. So we're really delighted that we've got an HND approved in that space. Now we're already getting quite a lot of interest in terms of how that can be used and utilised by providers. Can I have the next slide, please, Stuart? Cycle 3, this is our engineering and manufacturing roster. So the first slide, the majority of the qualifications on this slide are in existence or sort of disaggregated pathways, which we've just ensured alignment with the occupational standards that we're submitting against. So if you know our suite of HNs, you'll know many of these titles. The HNs in space engineering, though, that's a very new one. We've developed that with Truro and Penrith College. That's been a great co-developed model. They've been extremely supportive, and they'll be using that, you know, in their kind of space engineering efforts down there. So that's new, and that will also go forwards in cycle 3. Next slide, please, Stuart. And then we have a range of actually new HNs here. So everything down from automation and control systems to computer systems engineering. We've developed those new HNs with the West London Institute of Technology. So that's great. That's some new learning programs there. Actually, 2 of those we won't submit until cycle 4, or we won't submit to all of the standards until cycle 4 because the standards, a couple of the standards aren't available until the cycle 4 window. So there'll be a bit of a phased thing going on there. And last but not least, I mean, the HNC manufacturing operations, we developed that with BMW some years ago. We're tweaking and submitting again in the same vein as the previous slide. And the final qualification for submission in cycle 3 is the HND in leadership and management. Now, this is, again, disaggregated content from the HN in business, and we're mapping it very closely to the operations departmental manager standard at level 5. I think those are all my slides, Stuart.
Yeah, that's all your slides covered. Thanks, Rebecca. We're probably a couple of minutes ahead of schedule. So if anybody on the call would like to come off mute and have some questions for Rebecca, now would be a great time. Well, it looks like you've covered all the information there, Rebecca. So yeah, we can move on. All right, thank you very much. And as I said, you can always just pop into the chat if something does pop up. Okay, so just going to quickly move on to submitting your own HTQs under the trademark license. We have on the call today Yasmin Pitter, who owns this piece. So I'm just going to I probably do it a bit of a disservice, Yasmin, but we will be making this, as I said, this slide or this deck available to you, but you can kind of group it into two groups. We've got the HE providers with validating powers and HE providers without validating powers. And you can see there the color coordinated in the steps 1, 2, and 3. So, you know, if it's an off-qual regulated Pearson BTEC Higher National, if you have validating powers, Pearson will submit a number of Higher National HTQs, as Rebecca has already walked through, and we have those others on the horizon as well. So, one of the benefits here is that, you know, we've gone through, how can I say, maybe not the pain, but we've gone through a lot of work to get there. So we can certainly, take that away from HEIs who are considering this path. If you are looking at using your own content but has a Higher National in the title, it's all about the advanced consent. So please get in touch with us in the first instance. And I will be looking at that a little bit more detail in the next slide. If it uses both the qualifications content, which is Pearson's IP, and has a Higher National in the title, again, advanced consent there from Pearson required to use the Higher National trademark and IP content under license from Pearson, so for the HTQ submission. Those providers without validating powers is slightly different there. So Pearson will submit a number of Higher National HTQs, as Rebecca has already been through, and eligible Pearson approved centres will receive approval to deliver. Providers could choose to work with Pearson to co-design Higher National HTQs for submission by Pearson, which meets local needs as well. And also providers could choose to work with a licensed HEI. Pearson will submit a number of Higher Nationals for HTQ approval, and eligible Pearson approved centres will receive approval to deliver. That's if they use both the qualifications that I'm just looking at part 3 there. So as I said, we will be making this available to you. It is on our website as well. But Yasmin, I'm not sure if there's anything there that you would like to add at this point.
Yes, just to add that we are keen to work in partnership with our HEIs. So as we have done already with some HEIs that have submitted HTQs, we're keen to make sure that everyone can put forward the HTQs that they would like to see, but also that there isn't confusion in the market or duplication of effort. So the advanced consent, yes, it is required, but it is very much a case of Pearson not wanting to unreasonably withhold that. We want to work together with our HEI partners, and that's what we've been doing so far. So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much. And in terms of the Htq approval process, it's the same process if you're interested in doing an a licensed IP or licensed trademark. So no change there. So it just be an Htq. If you are considering submission of HNs under the trademark license as an Htq, the HTQs under trademark license cannot have the same title as Pearson HTQs. We want to ensure that there's no confusion in terms of that titling. So this is something that we've been working with as a team, and we're trying to make this process as painless as possible for our partners and potentially future partners as well. So some considerations are, adding the employer name as an HTQ, developing yourself. You might be working with a local employer, BAE Systems, for example. You might be able to put that into the title. You might also be able to add a prefix such as applied. So an example there, HNC, HND in applied computing, or HNC applied cybersecurity instead of the HN in computing. We also are aware that titling is very, very important, and we don't want to change the perception, I guess, of that content. So please, we're very happy to work with you in coming up with a suitable title that meets your needs and the potential students' needs as well. We are also aware that we work with various systems, and there are character limitations as well. And one suggestion that we'll be putting forward, and we're in discussions with IFATE at the moment, is a UL, which is short for under license. So again, we are working very closely with IFATE, working with the team, and we'll work with you as well in finding that suitable title. So I guess in a nutshell, contact, as soon as you're thinking about, you know, an HTQ, developing your own HTQ, just getting with the HNC, HND, you know, in there, please get in touch with us as soon as possible. And once we start the conversations, I think we can come to a relatively quick solution. Before I hand over to Brendan, we are a few minutes ahead of time. I just want to say thank you very much, Rebecca, for your session just then. I haven't seen anything in the chat so far. So Brendan, unless there's anybody else that's got questions for me, oh, sorry, we've got Claire.
Yeah, hi, Stuart, thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick one, really. When I'm, you know, as you know, we've sort of corresponded about sort of
Yes.
a number of these issues. You were just talking there about sort of obviously adding something like a prefix, like applied, which we've done for one of our awards with a partner. What confuses me slightly is that if, say, at Plymouth we have HN, you know, applied computing, and then Portsmouth want HN applied computing, isn't that a problem in itself? Because you're seeming to say that actually every institution that offers and validates these awards should have a bespoke name so as not to confuse iFate. So wouldn't there be the same problem if we all had applied computing under the license agreements?
Stuart, I can probably step in here. Yes, thank you, Claire. No, that is a very good point, but I think the key thing is if we have the conversations early, then these are just some examples of ways that the titles could be made more unique. So if obviously there's an applied science already used, then we can say that's already being used by X. So that's a way that we would have to find a different way of distinguishing that title. So these here are just some considerations for how we might be able to make the title look different. But we would really want to discuss that with you to find a suitable solution.
So thanks, Yasmin. That sort of answers the question that actually everyone has to be distinct, but that's the requirement of iFate.
It's not so much a requirement of iFate, it's more a case of when you're using a higher national, because when people see the higher national, they make assumptions as to what the content will be, and maybe wrongly assume that it will be exactly the same as the content that we put on the Pearson higher nationals. So in order to make it clear for everybody, if the title is different, then they know that that's not being used under IP, it's a different separate qual.
But we're still using your license, and it still has to, we usually do a mapping document when there's a Pearson award that we use within one of ours, usually with our partners, and we still have to demonstrate actually that it meets the sort of integrity of your award. So that's the bit that also confuses me slightly, because on one hand you're saying that it's got to be sufficiently different because it needs to have a different name and a different identity, but are we still required to map against the parent award, which is offered by Pearson?
You are. I mean, this is quite a unique scenario to the HTQs. So, for example, with computing, we had a situation where there were two HND computings, HTQ qualifications on the iFate register, if you like, for want of a better phrase. And so it wouldn't have been clear that they in fact were two different qualifications because they both had exactly the same title. So I think it was the Plymouth or Portsmouth version is actually different. It's their own version that they've developed, but it's still a HTQ. So it's for that scenario that we're talking about, where it is a completely different HTQ, but it's still a higher national that's been developed by the HEI. That's when the titling needs to be different.
Yeah, sure. But so the situation is, if you have an HND under license with a particular name, which has got an HTQ in it, it has to be different from every other one in terms of the name because it's got an HTQ in it. But the content still has to align to the Pearson sort of parent award.
So there are two scenarios really. You've either got one where the HEI has developed their own higher national, which would follow the normal rules in terms of mapping and having the key elements that makes it a higher national. But that content is the content of the HEI. They've decided what they want to put in there. Then you've got the other option where it's actually a HTQ under license, which the university is adopting in its entirety using the intellectual property, and they would just be using ours. So then everybody's clear that that's the Pearson IP version that this university has adopted. And the other one is actually the university designing their own higher national and then submitting that for HTQ approval. And those two need to have a different name so that there's no confusion about the content.
Right. So everybody basically, if they're going down this route of having licensed HNs with HTQs sort of integrated into them, has to have a different name.
Yeah, the main thing is to have a conversation with us first of all before it, and then we can resolve these considerations.
I can sort of see it's a bit like sort of getting the sexiest IP addresses and things, isn't it? I can sort of see sort of us running out of titles fairly quickly, but I don't know what the demand will be. And
yeah, I mean we're trying to avoid a situation where you have two HNs with exactly the same title, but they have different content, but they've both been given the HTQ kite mark.
Yeah. Not
clear that there is in fact a difference between them. That's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be really interested to know what are the key issues for IFATE in requiring this, because I know one of the
I just need to stress it's not IFATE that are requiring this, it's Pearson in terms of using the license for the higher nationals.
Yeah, but I think the rationale came from IFATE needed to know when they were registered that, you know, I think this was when this was brought to our attention. We understood it was primarily raised as a concern for IFATE being able to make sure that actually they were clear on which qual they were giving the sort of the benchmark. Sorry,
I mean, certainly for monitoring, because IFATE will want to monitor HTQ usage, they need to know which HTQ is which and belongs to which institution. But I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, but certainly there was an issue in terms of the trademark and whether all of the consents had been obtained, and it wasn't entirely clear from their application form about whether that had occurred. So that's where IFATE came into the question.
Okay. Thanks.
But happy to take this offline because I can go into more detail if needed.
Yeah, I think they were just obviously sort of going forward. I think it might be not quite sustainable as we would hope, but as you say, at the moment it's a fairly sort of new and emerging market. So yeah, I can see trying to sort of work it out as it goes along. So thank you for your time, Yasmin.
No problem at all.
Thank you, Claire. And so what I'd like to do now is pass over to Brendan Carlson. Brendan is the Education Project Startup Lead with Nottingham Trent University, and he's going to share you his experience that he's been having with Pearson over the last few months. So I'm going to hand over to Brendan now. Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Stuart?
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you to Claire, because if Claire didn't ask those questions, you would have heard all my dogs. My house just went upside down all of a sudden. So thank you for that. So if you want to keep skipping forward for me, Stuart, with the slides. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because Rebecca and Wade have already articulated lots of the reasons for HTQs and so on and the rest of it. But if you just keep going, Stuart, just keep going for me another slide. So when we first set out as a university looking at the higher technical qualifications, and quite rightly, as Rebecca said, it's a kite mark, and then there's an underlying qualification underneath that. We reviewed lots of different policies and government papers that are out there already. And so obviously we knew that there was a low uptake of level 4 and 5, especially compared internationally. It's actually quite a high uptake, especially in Germany and places like that. But with this particular, the current system and case for change highlighted that there are many foundation degrees out there at level 4 and 5 that actually don't offer a lot of currency within the labour market. But HNs were applauded within this paper as something that was recognised quite widely by employers. So it was some of this that got our thinking around, should we partner with Pearson's for HNs or should we just go out on our own? If you could go on for me. Thank you. So as Wade has already clearly articulated, it's multifaceted, the reason why we wanted to go with Pearson's for offering IP version of HTQs. And the Skills for Jobs white paper, which now we've got the Skills and Post-16 Education bill, which is now in legislation. What that talks about, especially the Skills for Jobs white paper, it talks about the need for qualifications to offer flexibility for students. So students can move from one institution to another institution without the worry about credit transfer, about being limited on how many credits they could transfer, about having smaller awards. So again, I'm just trying to paint a bit of a picture to make you understand why, before I go into some of the details, what our thinking was at the time when we were looking at this. If you go for me again, Stuart. And I mean, Wade and Rebecca just stole my thunder. So in terms of the higher technical qualifications, we actually did go through the pain. And Stuart, you said it wasn't pain, but it was pain. So originally, before I was in secondment in this role of developing higher technical qualifications, the university did put forward our own certificate in education for software developer. And we're very proud of that qualification, and it did indeed get the kite mark. But I can assure you that it was painful, that process. One of the limiting factors that I had an issue with IFATE, which I had put I wrote a blog and put it on 1KHE about it actually as well, is originally IFATE did state that it had to be a minimum of 60% of the knowledge, skills and behaviors. Their ambition was always that you should aim for 100, but actually it was a minimum of 60%. That's now changed, some of those rules have. So one of the issues that I had with our own HTQ kite mark qualification was, I was thinking, well, there was a whole group of us at the university plus employers, so we had a large stakeholder group. We were thinking, how transferable is this qualification, or are qualifications that have been submitted to IFATE that are not recognised by awarding bodies such as Pearson's? And what I mean by that is some qualifications that are HTQ kite marked, say for software engineering, if that qualification has only met 60% of the knowledge, skills and behaviours, then another qualification that's submitted from a different awarding organisation may have met the 40% that particular one didn't, and therefore you suddenly have a problem around that transferability and that currency. One qualification might have hit 100%, one might have hit 60%. So suddenly it's a mixed model, which did concern us. So if you move forward again for me, Stuart. Thank you. And Wade spoke about this as well. So now we know, what we know is from the lifelong learning entitlement, we know that's coming in from 2025. It's looking very, very likely that modules that can be bundled together will be at least 30 credits, required to be 30 credits for it to receive a student loan, for students to be able to be access to loan to cover it. So we know that. We also know with some certainty that those 30 credit bundles will need to align to a full award. So suddenly we've got a whole raft of issues that we're thinking of, all interrelated to level 4 and 5, some at level 6 as well. So lots of this was in our minds at the time when we started to talk with Pearson's. If you go for me again. Right, so basically, before I talk about the challenges and solutions, so when we set out or setting our high technical qualifications, we wanted qualifications that were going to be highly transferable, highly recognizable for our local employers, for our colleges, because we're all about working in collaboration. So We wanted qualifications where a student could potentially do a HNC at a college, come to us and do a HND, but actually we wanted to go even further than that. We wanted an opportunity for students to maybe do the 30 credits or do the HN Flex, where they've done so many credits towards a particular module, towards a particular HN, and be able to come to us without the worry of thinking, well, they might not hit the certain knowledge, skills and behaviors of certain HTQs because we've done our own. So we were very keen to try and find a model for that. So actually all the people who are presenting from Pearson's here, they've not just been pulled out for today's presentation. Actually, they were the people that had supported me from day one with all of these different conversations about how can we work effectively together between Pearson and between Nottingham Trent University to ensure that the university doesn't lose its identity as being an awarding organisation, but also so we can take advantage and recognise the value of what Pearson's offers around higher national certificates and diplomas, because our employers were shouting out for it, especially around engineering, as what was already discussed. So we didn't want to go down the trademark, and it's no disrespect to anyone that has, partly because some of the issues that Claire has already encountered and discussed. And we were concerned that if we come up with our own HN, then we could, well, it's great to have the HN trademark because that's highly recognizable, but then we'll come across the same problems as what we would with our own qualification, where that a student would struggle, wouldn't have that fluidity, being able to transfer between a college anywhere across the country using the HN qualification as our main steer through an IP license instead. And also, we did not want the pain actually of the whole I-8 process. And the beauty of working in partnership with Pearson is we've been able to have conversations around, for example, modern methods of construction is one of ours that we're going to be running in partnership with Pearson from 2023. And we're really proud that from the start of that process that Pearson was going through with I-8, we were kept up to date with all of what was happening, developments, what was being proposed, and they gave us some opportunity to discuss the content. So for us, that's value to us, that's value to Pearson's, but that's value to all the partners that use it and colleges as well. So that collaboration is really, really important. Some of the challenges, because I'm conscious of time, Stuart, some of the challenges that we faced were, well, particularly with some parts of the university, I mean, the university was an ex-polytechnic, so we really do get higher technical qualifications. But actually, we are still very proud of our own qualifications. So it's actually trying to make sure everyone across the university understood this wasn't about just dropping the NTU badge. This was more about working in partnership with Pearson, still being able to have an NTU award, but actually in partnership with Pearson's. For us, that seems to add even more gravitas to the qualification. So we're not losing our identity. Actually, we're adding to our identity with Pearson. So that's a massive benefit. We were initially concerned that we're going to have to change all our internal processes because we're going down an IP license route with Pearson's, which is not the case. So we use all our own internal processes. That includes our own external examiners. And Pearson's are very good at meeting with you at the very earliest stages and throughout to talk through what your processes are. And it's not by no means it's not something that they're testing you. It's more to make sure it's complementary with how it works for Pearson's and so on as well. So, and that was really beneficial to us. The massive advantage, of course, is having that transferability of the Htq kite mark. So I am all the qualifications that Rebecca was showing earlier. I mean, some of them I didn't even know about yet because they've just been announced. But in my head, they're all going to be added to our catalogue because all of them are going to be of value. We are starting to look at progression from HTQs because we're trying to aim our HTQs at students who really want to come to university as well as those who as well. And we're looking at this top-ups. And we are also looking at HN Flex as an option. And all of this is because of the fact that we're working in partnership. The only real challenge has been edXL Online, but that's not really Pearson's doing. That's because we have an FE part of our university. And I'm adamant that I don't want to mix up the edXL Online between the FE side of what we do and the HE side. And all I can say is with that is Pearson's have been massively supportive to try and create a bespoke solution for me. If you want to go to the next one, Stuart. So the summary benefits, I won't go through these because I've spoken a lot about them, but just to pluck out some of them, and I know Stuart's going to share this. We see the IP license, like I say, it's an opportunity to show to everybody, you know, we're all about collaboration, and it's also with our FE partners. And I know from we're very close to Vision West Nottinghamshire College. They're pleased that we've partnered with Pearson's to offer HNs. So that's something that we're really keen on. The off-the-shelf element is really, really great for us because actually Pearson's have put in so much work of making these qualifications technically focused that for us, we can use those off-the-shelf products. It doesn't mean we can make them distinct by the added value that we put around it as a study program and in the way that we deliver those qualifications. So we're meeting the same learning outcomes, and largely what we'd have come up with would have been the same as what Pearson's did anyway. And then one of the other aspects is this lifelong loan entitlement that Wade was speaking about. We see opportunity now with our HTQs with using HNs, and also looking at HN Flex as an opportunity to fund 30 credit bundles of units, so students then can progress or they can move between different levels. And it's also a great option for our apprenticeships as well. So we're looking at growing our apprenticeships at level 4 and 5 and using the HTQ classes as a way of having a big community of practice for full-time, part-time HN and apprentices. So for us, it's been amazingly great to work with Pearson's on this. And the last slide. So much so that Jane, who was on the call earlier, came with Yasmin as well, and came to speak with our Pro Vice Chancellor and our Vice Chancellor at Nottingham Trent University. And we're very proud to have put a news release out from both organisations to say how proud we are to work together. And we do see it as a long-term relationship of growing our community of practice for HTQs. And I'm happy to take any questions, Stuart. I'm sorry that was quick.
No, it allows.
Maybe it was slow. Maybe it
wasn't. No, it allows time for questions. So yeah, if you'd like to raise a question, please take yourselves off mute.
Hi, I'm wondering, Brendan, if you could tell us a little bit more about how that works with your partners. So, do you work with, say, college partners to sort of take the off-the-shelf Pearson, but sort of, you know, they're still part of working with you in terms of the support you give them as a university partner and the opportunity students have to sort of access university resources and things like that?
Thank you. That's a really, really good question. So for most of our unit, we're really moving away from like validated and franchised services. So we're tending to move away from that side of things and instead trying to work more collaboratively with colleges in a more deeper, meaningful relationship. So Vision West Nottinghamshire College, for example, we've got a campus on their site. So I know this is not going to be possible for all universities, but they're going to deliver up to level 3 and we're going to deliver from level 4 and upwards. So that's our preferred model of working in partnership. And then we invest in the college site, and then they equally get their students gain to come on to Nottingham Trent University courses. So we're not intending to franchise out or validate these the HTQs with our college partners unless there's a demand. And if there is, then of course we'd work with Pearson's before doing anything like that. So that would be the option they would go through. I mean, the actual truth is, Claire, what I'd be advising colleges that want to go down this route is actually go through it directly with Pearson's. It's a different setup between you and I because you've got the trademark and we've got the IP. I'd be suggesting to them that they could go directly for off-qual regulated version with Pearson's, and we work with them instead on the top-ups. That would be for level 6 is what that would be our preferred option going forward at this point. So that doesn't really help you, Claire, because you're a trademark and I get that.
No, I mean, it's just interesting with this sort of changing market, and also with things like micro credentials as well coming into play, how you know how to meet those needs. And you know, obviously, you know, we look to work with our sort of regional partnership very closely, but we can see the attractiveness that many of our regional partners have for going for the off the shelf. version. But at the same time, we still have a number of them who feel that their local employer needs means they want to write something which is very much bespoken around those local employer needs. So I would really like the best of both worlds, because what's one of the things that we know a lot of our partner college students benefit from is having that identity with the university as they're going through their provision on college sites, that, you know, they're still recognised as a university student. They get university resources, they get our, you know, library, they get sort of, you know, university sort of coming in and doing things with them. And I, you know, I would really like to have my cake and eat it. And I think it's very difficult for many colleges, because, you know, they sometimes don't have the infrastructure to invest in some of the stuff that the university invests in. So we want to work with them on it. But
Definitely.
then, you know, you've got all these sort of obstacles in a way, which, you know, they obviously have to be paid for, and they have to be licensed, and you have to sort of, you know, get it right legally. And yeah, so I think we're sort of quite open to looking at all of the different options around this, which at the end of the day is going to help us support the offer to the local students and employers. So yeah, I mean, we're open to all sorts of, you know, any ideas which can come out of this.
I mean, no, so some of the stuff that you said, I agree with entirely. We are still making them local. So we've taken the Htq program and done, you know, you'll probably know Professor Alison Wolfe, a study program concept that she brought into FE. So you've got the substantial qualification, which in our case would be the Htq, but also we're adding value. So we're doing short courses alongside that Htq to make it more local, if indeed the need is there to make it more localized, if it's that bespoke. But actually we've found with the HN so far, and we've worked with lots of construction companies within Nottingham City and the county, and actually what we found is it's actually there what they're after, but in the way that we deliver it might be more bespoke to those, but they're still meeting the same learning outcomes. But I take your point, I do understand what you mean. In terms of the IP license and having your badge on it and all that sort of stuff, that's a conversation for Pearson. I don't know if that's possible to do with a college. It's not something that we're looking at the moment, but yeah, we're trying to stay very much local. And our intention is to, we already work with the local colleges already, and some of that isn't through any kind of validated or franchise service. It's just purely on the basis of collaboration. And there are opportunities to work together across a number of different things. Micro-credentials, now that you said it, that's where micro-credentials will be funded within the lifelong loan entitlement, but they won't be as what we would know as micro-credentials from the old days, where it's like 5 credits. It's the 30 credit bundles. So you could have 3 lots of 10 credits, for example, and bundle them together, and you could do that. But again, I see that as a real opportunity working with Pearson for the HN Flex route in order to do that. So I hope that's helpful. Claire, really good question though. Thank you. I like being challenged.
Thank you very much, Claire, and also special thank you to you, Brendan, for joining us today. I just want to put in a disclaimer, everybody. He's not on a retainer or anything like this. It is coming from Brendan, coming from the heart, and it's been fantastic to work with Brendan. He's a real driver behind this, and we're really looking forward to keep the relationship strong. And yes, share the experience with EOL. I am working on it today, actually, Brendan. Working on a solution this morning, actually, before this presentation. So hopefully that's will be all sorted very, very soon. And also thank you for raising HN Flex. And we're talking about custom design higher nationals next, Claire. So that is quite topical. It is break time. We've gone a couple of minutes into it. So if we can rejoin in 11:55, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. We have Isabel Glenn joining us today. Oh, we've got just bring Claire back into the room, who is our subject lead for business, hospitality, travel and tourism. And she's going to be talking about custom design, higher nationals, as well as HN Flex. In fact, Isabel, in the previous session or prior to the meeting, HN Flex and potentially custom design were raised. So it's quite timely that you are joining us now. So I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Stuart. Hi, everybody. I am presenting on behalf of our custom design manager, Marianne Hendon, who couldn't be here with us today. So I know questions might come up. Hopefully I'll be able to respond to them and answer them, and hopefully you'll be getting some answers through the presentation delivery now. But if not, we may have to refer back to the expert, Marianne. So I'm presenting the custom designed qualification service that we offer, which is a very flexible, collaborative process and cost-effective process for our customers to be able to create and develop qualifications that are really fit for purpose. It may be that they want to diversify their portfolio and the provision that they're currently offering. It may be that they're looking for qualifications to address skills gaps. It could be that they're looking at meeting a local agenda as well, local government agendas in terms of the qualifications that they develop. So we can really customise the qualifications to meet specifically their requirements. And we have a whole range of subject areas across our BTEC Higher National Suite. So we have existing content that we can work with, as well as obviously offering a service to write new content for our customers. So next slide, please, Stuart. So in terms of working closely with the universities that are under licence, if they're looking at custom design qualifications, it's a really agile process. As I said, it's very collaborative, it's very iterative. And we have that existing content that we can work with, but we can write content based on really your requirements and your needs. And we can normally develop these qualifications within a 9-month period. So it is very, very agile. It's also a very cost-effective solution for our customers because, you know, we do have that existing content. We are able to develop the qualification through a tried and tested HM model, and that's saving you time in terms of your resourcing and planning and having to develop new qualifications when we already have a bank of curriculum content that we can work with, adapt and customise specifically to meet your needs. We also design the qualifications often when we're working with universities to support that progression route from level 5 into the top up at level 6. So we do design them based on that, you know, progression route and what is suitable for your students and the route that they want to take. We currently worked actually with a university in southwest London on designing and customising their higher nationals in engineering solely to support their progression onto that level 6 delivery. And of course you do have the option to retain the intellectual property rights of any material that we produce and of the qualifications we produce for you. Thank you, Stuart. So in terms of when we're you know, commissioned to do these qualifications, it's up to you what type of qualification you want us to develop. It might be a completely new qualification whereby we might create new curriculum content for you, or we might be able to draw on our existing content, adapt that to meet your requirements, and then write new content as well, as I said. So it could be a completely new certificated qualification comprising of existing current content and new. Just thinking of a development that was validated last year, which was for digital technologies higher nationals, that we wrote and produced new qualification for one of the institutes of technology. But it may be that you just want to look at your provision and include a new pathway, for example, a new specialist route. So we can, write new curriculum in order to certificate a new pathway, possibly within the existing specification. We introduced a law pathway into our Higher Nationals in Business, which was a custom designed pathway to meet the requirements of a centre in Sri Lanka who were progressing students onto top-up agreements that they had with universities in the UK into law. So we created the new pathway there for them. It might be that you're just looking at just including some additional units, and it may not be, again, a full qualification or a change in certification. You just would like to have some additional specialist units possibly written to meet your specific needs of your students, and again to meet that progression route for your students as well, and requirements for the level 6 progression. I'm just thinking of a custom design qualification that we did with a centre in China, where we added in 2 units for them at level 4 that were focused on human resource management, because they had an employability route for their students studying on our human resource management pathway in the business specification, and that was just 2 units. So we can do anything you like, and again, as I said, you have the rights to retain that intellectual property once we've written that curriculum for you. Thanks, Stuart. You want to... So when we're designing the qualifications, we have really strong design principles, and we have to obviously meet regulatory requirements and quality assurance processing. And when we develop that curriculum, we are always referring back to those points of reference. Obviously, the framework for higher education qualifications framework for our descriptor levels and our programme outcomes at level 4 and 5. We also relate to the SEEK descriptors, and depending on the subject area, we'll use the QAA subject sector benchmarks. We'll also refer to the occupational standards, which are for IFATE. So when we're developing that curriculum and designing curriculum, not only are we collaborating with you and looking at your content requirements, but also we're always going back to our points of reference as we develop that qualification. You do get a choice of framework once you develop a qualification. So if a qualification, a custom design qualification, is on the regulated qualification framework, that is known as the RQF, that's on the Ofqual register, and that means when we custom design a qualification, that qualification actually is published and made public to everybody, and therefore it's not just the commissioning centre that will have delivery of that specification. It is available to all, but it may be that those that are commissioning the design of the qualification, the centre wants exclusive rights to their custom design qualification. And if that's the case, then it goes on what we call a self-regulated framework, which is regulated by Pearson. So when we design these custom designed qualifications, they'll either sit normally on the RQF qualification framework or on our SRF qualification framework. We're really flexible, obviously, in terms of the structures and the combination of units, and giving opportunity for students to be certificated at level 4. They can exit after that first year with a higher national certificate, as you know, and at level 5 they would get the higher national diploma, and then clearly ensuring that we're building in again that progression opportunity for that study at level 6. So we do work, as I said, very flexibly. You are involved at every step of the process, if you like, in terms of a custom designed qualification, in the initial stages, discussing the type of units you want, the content requirements. And then once we're actually in the process of writing content, we do share those draft units and that written content with you, so that you can also be part of that review process. and guidance in terms of the writing of the units, and also taking it through to the validation of that qualification as well, and sharing the full specification with you for feedback. So it's really key to the custom design process that we work very closely with our universities. Qualification development can be employer driven. If you've got a key employer that you're working with and is driving that content, then clearly that's you know, fundamental to some of our custom designed qualifications, is working with those employers as well. And we are looking at custom designed RQF higher nationals as well for the new submissions for the higher technical qualifications, to gain the higher technical qualification quality mark with IFATE. So we will also take these qualifications, if required, through the IFATE approval, so they get that kite marking. So if you're looking to develop a higher technical qualification that's also going to have that accreditation from IFATE, then we'll also offering that service and that approval process for you. Thanks, Stuart. Next slide. So here are some of our qualifications. So if you just click through, Stuart, I think they're all going to come up. You know, these are ones that have just been developed in the orange, and here we're just validating. So you can see they cover a whole range of subject areas. We've got renewable energy, we've got the classical and computer animation there, the RQF manufacturing, and actually that's a good example of an employer-driven development. That was with BMW in South Africa for that particular qualification, but again it went on to the RQF, so it was also published for our centres here in the UK if they wish, or internationally, to deliver that qualification. We've currently just validated several qualifications that went through IFATE approval, so they're going through that approval for the kite marking for our engineering, the electronic and electrical systems, the automation and control systems engineering, and we've also just gone through the validation of a level 6 management diploma. So, you know, we can, you know, we're looking at a diverse range of subject areas that we can custom design qualifications for. So if you require any further information, so just on the next slide, I think now, Stuart, if you want to find out more, as I said, I'll try and answer any questions you may have at the end of the session today, but it is Marianne Hendon at pearson.com, and that's her email address there. If you want to discuss any further sort of opportunities that you might have, or any ideas you have for custom designed qualifications, we normally will start the process with obviously a meeting with you to find out what your needs and wants are, and then we can really advise you from there in terms of what we can offer. Thanks, Stuart. So I'm now looking at sort of, it's not quite custom design, but this is our HM Flex model, which you may be aware of. And this is, again, designing real short-term skills solutions for all our customers to support those long-term career aspirations. If you go to the next slide, thanks. This is only available to those universities that have got their higher national IP license. So if you've got the trademark, it's not available to those of you with just the trademark in delivery of the HM Flex. But HM Flex is this modular approach to learning, stackable approach to learning, whereby we can accredit and award separately up to 4 units on higher national qualifications. So students don't necessarily obviously have to be studying the full higher national certificate or the higher national diploma. Maybe they just want to select a couple of units to complete, and we are able to then certificate that with the it's a unit of achievement certification. but these units can be selected across any of our higher nationals. So really, you've got that complete flexibility of all that we provide, you know, ranging from digital technologies to the computing, to sport, performing arts, business, and it may be you can select, you know, units from all those different specifications, but they can only do a combination of up to 4. Once they've completed those units, if they did want to progress, obviously, onto the higher national certificate, then they can do so, or the higher national diploma. So also it's quite a nice sort of way of putting together maybe a, you know, sort of taster or bridging program for your students. Thanks, Stuart. So in terms of the industry engagement for HM Flex, it's great because obviously it's, you know, if you're working with employers and those out in the workplace, it really gives them that time to study while they're working, and the work commitments get, you know, it's very flexible, and so it supports continuous professional development out in the workplace. And those units, you know, that can be chosen to, you know, for those that specifically are needing, you know, really meeting the employer needs there as well. So you can get that progression to the full qualification with those banked credits. So they can do up to those four units and then bank those credits and maybe use them at a later date as well to go to progress onto a full qualification. Next slide, please. So in terms of what the students get out of it, obviously, is that bite-sized learning. They're gaining, you know, the specific skills and behaviours and competencies through, you know, those units that have been selected, and maybe, you know, sort of a personalised approach for students. And then, of course, as we said, they're very stackable, and they may either want to bank that credit to take on to further learning as well. So in terms of the HM Flex model, again, it's my colleague Marianne Hendon who'll be able to support you with any further questions on our HM Flex. So thank you for listening. I'm not sure if we have any questions coming through.
Thank you, Isabel. Nothing in the chat so far, but again, just a moment. If you have a question, please, you know, come off mute. Oh. Looks like no questions at this time, Isabel. Thank you very much. Thank you for stepping in for Marianne as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so I think it is over to me now. So, of course, my computer is just lagging a little bit, but I just want to provide some national licensed higher national updates. It does have Raman Ganani on the slide here. She is our licensed HM Partnerships Manager, but due to illness, she is not able to attend today's session, so I'll be stepping in her place, and hopefully I can do a fairly decent job in her stead. So just on this slide here, just letting you know what's happening. We have formed you know, a new team, and this team is now able to focus 100% on the licensed HNs, and especially with Raman stepping into the new role. And she's been very, very busy working since she started with us. She's only been here, I think this must be her 7th week now on the licensed team, but she's made fantastic headway already. So what are we doing? We're updating the website. We know that there's information on there that needs to be constantly added. Also, we want to make it a lot more accessible. So we'll be providing updates on that over the near future. There's a lot of documentation, guidance around licensed HNs as well. So aside from making them a little easier on the eye, we want to make sure that the information there is up to date and accessible and user friendly as well. So Raman has been working on the documentation there, and we want to make sure that you know, any kind of ambiguity is removed from that content. We're starting up our quarterly newsletters, and one has already been released. So again, make sure that your contact details are up to date. As far as we know, we've got the most recent contact details, but if you need to let us know if there's been any changes on your side, get in touch with us, and so we can get those newsletters to the people that connected with licensed HNs at your HEI. Another thing that Raman has been focusing on is catch-ups with each HEI. We've been trying to build strong connections with HEIs. We do have regular catch-ups. We can certainly slot in a regular catch-up with you, either a monthly or bi-monthly, however you feel would work in terms of those catch-ups. So yeah, please, we'll be reaching out to everybody over the coming months. Also, we've been working on the IRR. The report will be coming out very, very soon. I'm going to go through the highlights over the next slide, but what this little square here is saying is that we're getting feedback, and that's through those regular catch-ups as well. And the feedback is trying to make that IRR, or the input of that data, a lot easier, I guess, a lot less painful, and we want to make sure that the data we're collecting from you is still relevant and useful. And so we're looking at the questions and the way that's accessed, and looking at improvements there. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So speaking of IRR, I just wanted to go through some key highlights here. I'm not going to go, as I said, it's just going to be highlights because we do have the report, and so we do strongly encourage you, once that report is released, we're hoping to get that released very, very soon, within the next few days, and for you to read, because we feel there's a lot of information in there that'll be quite useful for you to know. But what are those key highlights? So despite an overall decline, the HND registrations both at campus and partner has improved, at campus by 120% and at partner by 29%. License completions and achievement, overall completions declined by 19%, but HND completions at campus increased by 264% and HND at partner by 5%. Overall grade achievements for licensed HN remain varied between campus and partner sites. Overall, progression declined by 16%. The HNC to HND at campus improved by 111%. We've noticed in sector areas too, there is a slight decline with engineering, computer science and construction. We know that COVID-19 is still having a bit of a hangover effect, I guess. It's been a couple of years, it's been a very interesting sort of landscape that we've all found ourselves in, and trying to work our way through that. But we have seen an increase with performing arts. Areas of good practice which we'd like to mention as well, and this is coming from the external examiner reports, and particularly on learner support and adaptations during COVID. So as I mentioned, COVID's had an impact. When Rama did review the content and things, it said it had an impact, and I said, well, can the impact sometimes be positive as well? And it's true. There are some silver linings to COVID, in the sense that people have adapted. It's amazing humans, how the tenacity that they've demonstrated throughout this period, and willingness to provide that flexibility, and the students have really appreciated that. So another key highlight has been the strengthening and increasing of collaborative partnerships with local colleges. Talk today, you've heard from Brendan as well. Linked tutors, visiting partner sites and providing support to local colleges. Flexible delivery, and I think from a personal point of view, my daughter's been learning her A-levels online, and I think having that flexible delivery is going to be quite key going forward. Module marks not capped for students upon reassessments. Streamlining assessments to reduce the burden, and to allow more holistic assessments. And we know that HNs in particular, there's a focus on holistic assessment. Embedding employability skills into programs to enhance career progression. And as I said before, it's the student support, especially during the pandemic, that's been recognised and commended by all EEs. But as I said, the report, which will be released very soon, will go into this in more detail. So just before I hand over to our next speaker, I just wanted to mention a couple of questions that we get in from various partners about the license. And it's basically one of the first questions, which license should we apply for? Should it be for the trademark or intellectual property? So it really depends. The license guide explains both types of license, and it depends on your offer as to which type of license you need to apply for. It depends on a lot of factors. So you may choose, you can take the IP license with, it really depends on your situation. But another question has been, can we take IP license without the trademark? So no, you can't. As you don't get to use all our trademarks, so we approve you both for the IP and trademark. But if you only want the trademark, you can. So I just wanted to go over that again. I'm just probably not very clear, but you can, if you're going for the IP, you would also need to take out trademark. So who's responsible for managing the partners and the subsites? We have a contract with you as the HEI, so you'll be responsible for managing the partners and the subsites, and this includes the registration, the certification, and the awarding as well. We'll also be working with you directly with the invoicing, so that's really, really important. Can we offer HTQs on trademark license? We'll only be offering those under the IP. Next question or query that tends to come in is around registrations and outcome and who is responsible and what are the deadlines. So you are, the HEI is responsible for reporting all outcomes, including for partner sites. In terms of really important dates, we have September 15th, 2022. So you need to return your annual license HN schedules. Schedule 1 should confirm programs and expected registration numbers for licensed HNs delivered on campus. And Schedule 2 should confirm programs and expected registration for licensed HNs delivered at partner providers. Again, this is in the guidance document, so you probably are all familiar, but it's always quite good to be reminded. September 30th, 2022, outcomes for those students who completed their licensed HN program in 2021 and 2022 should be recorded on Edexcel online. October 25th of this year, the IRR or Institutional Review Report covering 21 and 22 academic year as released for HEI partners to complete. November 15th, new student registrations for 2021 and 2022 to be completed and uploaded to Edexcel online. And we've shifted the IR report to the due date for that until January 13th, 2023, to give you a little bit more time to complete that report. Another question or query that comes in is, when can we start delivery for programs? They have to be approved. Even though you are approved under the trademark or IP license, you have to ensure that you are approved under for that program. So if you do want to deliver an additional program, please submit that program to us. And once you receive approval from us, then you'll be able to deliver that program. But please don't deliver the program prior to approval. And last question or questions, basically, when do we, who can we get in contact with for any queries? So if you have any general queries regarding license, please get in touch with the License HN team. You have my address, email address, you have Raman's, but we also have a License HN inbox as well. So you can get in touch with us there in first instance. If you do have any questions around Edexcel Online or EOL, we do have a customer service team. And also invoices, queries. If you have any queries regarding invoices, payments and things like that, we also have a customer services team there. So the exam officer will be able to assist you on that front. Okay, I don't know if there are any questions that have come in on that front. Yasmin, anything there? Nothing. Okay, we do have a minute. If you do have any questions, you can bring yourself off mute. As I said, there's lots of information today, so we will be making this available, and you can get in touch with us if you do have any questions outside of the event. Great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hand you over once my computer does respond. There we go. Yep, it's doing it again. Okay. So we're going to pass you over to Amelia, who's our product manager for HN Global. Thank you, Amelia.
Hi, everyone. Great to be speaking with you today. As Stuart said, I'm the product manager here at Pearson for HN Global. So what I'm going to do is provide you with a bit of a brief overview of the platform and what it is and the ways in which it seeks to really benefit HN tutors and students. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll just give a brief bit of information about registering onto the platform as well. So next slide, please. So what is HN Global? So crucially, it's a completely free platform for HN centres. So that includes students and tutors. And it's a global community platform, and it's designed to really support students and tutors to get what they need out of their HN programme. So we're looking to enrich the student learning experience from all of the resources that are on the platform. And crucially also, it's a community. So tutors can speak to other HN tutors around the world who are delivering their programmes, and students can also interact with each other on the platform too. And it's also a way for you to interact directly with Pearson as well. So we've got roughly 34,000 users registered, and that's growing every day, which is great. Next slide, please. So I'll just take you through the support that's available for tutors first. So we basically centralised all of the delivery materials needed to deliver an HN. So specifications, schemes of work, example assessment briefs, and other delivery materials all in one place. You will also find all of the centre admin documents as well. So centre guidance documents, quality assurance support, and the HN assessment templates. And there's a lot more in the QA Centre Admin Hub. Moving on to the Tutor Channel. So this is where we host oh no, sorry, same slide. Thank you. So the Tutor Channel, this is where we host a range of videos for tutors. So there's a course on there taking tutors through how to get the most out of HN Global as a platform. And we've also got videos covering topics such as assessment and blended learning. And also tutors can use this channel to watch back recorded professional development events on demand at a time that will suit them. We've also got wellbeing resources on the platform as well, so covering areas such as mindfulness, and those are available for tutors and students because we know it's just a really critical area as well as the surround to studying your qualification. And another key area on the platform for tutors is the Professional Development Hub as well. So these hosts self-paced online courses, and some of these sort of focus specifically in on higher nationals, and there's also courses which are broader in scope, so they cover areas such as blended learning and remote delivery. So it's really to complement our live training offer with giving that on-demand self-paced option for tutors to fit around their schedules. Finally, the forum, sorry, before you move on. We've also got a forum, so that's for tutors and for students, so tutors can engage with each other, and they can also contact Pearson directly with any sort of subject related queries, and also, yes, like I said, students can talk to each other through the platform as well. Now you can move on. Sorry, Stuart, thank you. So moving on to students now. What's really great, when you sign up as a tutor, you will be able to see all of the content that's available for students as well. And what I think is really nice in terms of using HN in your delivery is that you can maybe signpost students to content they may not have noticed on HN Global, or if you're identifying real areas that students are struggling, you can assign an e-learning module or signpost out to all of the content that's on there, because there is a lot on there. So it may be that students don't know exactly what might benefit them at certain stages in their journey. So the subject resources libraries, these are curated libraries full of content that sort of link to most of the main higher national subjects, and they link out to third-party videos, articles, content. So it's just our way of sort of curating as that first step for students some of the content that might help them learn the unit content, just to give them that little boost and that first step. There's also a range of short courses, such as covering topics such as digital literacy, study skills, and finance. And like the Tutor Channel, we've got the Student Channel, and that covers areas such as workplace skills and time management, which is an area that we added recently, because what's great about this platform is that our conversations with HN tutors and students informs the content that we develop on the platform. So that was an area that we knew students were often struggling with, balancing their schedules and studying their HN. So there's lots of support on there as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So HN Global is also the place where students can access e-textbooks for certain HN courses, and the digital versions of those are mainly free, and then they can also click through from HN Global if they wish to order paid for print copies of their textbooks. We've recently added the English skills zone, so that offers a whole range of support for students wanting to brush up on their academic writing skills, spelling, punctuation and grammar skills, and also it gives them the opportunity to learn about the workplace or business English skills they're going to need when they progress in their careers as well. And a very exciting initiative we have on HN Global, I don't know whether it's been covered earlier today, but I'll go through it anyway. That's the HN Ambassadors Programme. So these are previous HN students who are available for current students to contact directly via HN Global through the forum, and they can ask any questions about anything, you know, about their experiences of studying in HN or their future careers in their chosen sectors. So that's a really great opportunity for HN students. And I think there are around 14 ambassadors at the moment, but that's something we're always hoping to grow. So I think that's a really exciting initiative to signpost to students. And finally, the Careers Centre. So this is an incredible resource for students because it houses a huge library of content linked to employability, job searching and workplace skills. And these are videos and e-learning resources and various tools as well to really help them think about their progression into the workplace. There's a couple of really amazing tools in there. So CV 360, which I think is amazing, is you upload your CV into the system and it checks against a lot of the common pitfalls that mean that CVs get screened out before they even reach hiring managers. So students have the opportunity to tweak their CV and sort of increase their chances of getting an interview when they're ready to take that step into employment. There's also an elevator pitch tool as well for developing that sort of 60-second pitch about themselves. And there's Interview 360 as well, which is a tool where the students complete a mock job interview online, and then they receive instant feedback on their performance. So there's so much in there for students. It's a really, really important section of the platform, looking at that sort of progression piece onwards from the higher nationals. I think that's it. If you just want to move on to the next slide. Thank you. So signing up takes literally 1 or 2 minutes, and you can register via hnglobal.highernationals.com. And I think you should have access to these slides after the session. Is that right, Stuart? So that's right. You'll have these links. And we've also got a dedicated inbox as well. So if there are any queries about the content that's on HN Global or any issues with registration, then you can email that email address there. So it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. That's what I'm often like, quite speedy. So if there are any questions or if you want me to go over anything, just drop a question in the chat or come off mute.
There's nothing in the chat. I'll give people a moment to come off mute. I do have a question for you, Amelia. How much does it all cost us in terms of if I want to sign up to HN Global?
It's free.
Amazing.
I thought that was a trick question.
The reason why I ask is I have looked at that Career Centre portal, I guess, within in HN Global, and there's an amazing array of resources there. I mean, is the fact that it's free and accessible to the students, yeah, it's, as I said, it's a lot of content there, and it really does prepare them for future employment. And do I need to be an approved centre to sign up?
Yeah. Although I believe that interested centres might be able to get a short demo access if they want to see what support's available as well. So you can email that hnglobal@pearson.com with any questions about access for your centre. There's a question from Karen. Is this related to, I don't know if this is an earlier question, is this aimed at IP or trademark license courses or both? It's aimed at everybody, anyone delivering an HN of any kind. So yeah.
Great. I think, yeah, there are no other questions.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Amelia.
Bye.
Okay, so we're on the home stretch now, I believe, and what we'd like to do is put the onus on you now, our audience. We would like you to share some good practice that you've experienced with the delivering licensed higher nationals. So we do have some prompts for you. So if you'd like to come off mute and have a look at these questions, we've got 4 questions here, and it'd be great to hear your feedback on these. So the first question is, how have you changed your delivery or assessment post-COVID? We've already got some information from the EEs in the reports with IRR, but it'd be great if somebody could share their experience. We don't have to start with that first question. We could move on to the second question, or if someone wants to, go ahead and choose one of those questions. So how have licensed HNs enhanced your provision? How have partnership arrangements with both UK and international partners worked for your university and benefits to students in terms of progression? And lastly there, how are you planning to offer licensed Htqs to support the Growth Fund and in future lifelong learning entitlement? So happy for you to take one of those questions and come off mute and let us know what your thoughts are.
Hi, Stuart. It's Stephen Castleton from Coventry University.
Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. Just for me, there's a few things on those questions there to sort of flag up. And I think for us, we've obviously had a relationship with Pearson for a little while. It's a big part of what we do in terms of our one of our subsidiary companies, and we have a mixture of mainly trademark license, but have some IP license too. And we are now dipping our toe into the HTQ water as well. And again, we've chosen to go down the IP route with you for that. And I think we've sort of seen the pain that the IFA process can give. So I think that's one of the things we've tried to do there. And it sort of fits in very well with our sort of overall approach, and having the HNCs and HNDs embedded in our sort of our programs, it allows us then to have that sort of it fits better, I think, for us in that regard.
Great, thanks, Stephen.
And I think the earlier talk that I think that Wade was, I think, sort of went to the sort of areas of why to consider HNs. They're all made sense to us in terms of that flexibility. Particularly, we have a very diverse range of students coming to us from all sorts of educational backgrounds, and so this is a way that they can test the water. Sometimes the stopping off points, we can allow them to that flexibility in terms of how we deliver the courses, and a number of them do take a break sometimes and come back and continue on to the next stage, and but many of them then do end up going on to the top-up degree at the end of it. So I think that flexibility is key for us.
And I think, Stephen, you've also mentioned that you have a very interesting intake, I guess, process in terms of the number of intakes you have throughout the year.
Yes, and we have 6 intakes a year, so that is a challenge, but we have a model that allows that to happen. Administering it is the issue, and then feeding back the data on where we are with each of these different cohorts can be then the challenge we have, particularly with the IRR, which we've discussed many times. But I think it's just trying to, again, it's just trying to understand, what we're trying to get out of that data, what you need to find out, and then trying to sort of pull out the relevant bits, I think, for the reporting.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we do understand that each HEI is unique in their provision, and as you say, in the intake as well. And the IRRs, we try and do a one size fits all, but we know that doesn't always work, and that's another reason behind reviewing that IRR, to make it a bit more flexible, and as you say, collect the data that not only is useful for us, but also useful for you to take forward for your provision. Were there any other comments that you wanted to mention? I know that Ian has posted a comment in the chat as well, which I'd like to explore. Anything else, Stephen?
That's it from me, I think.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much for your input today. I'm just going to read out Ian's comment here. The main change we have made is to use more online provision and bite-sized pieces through video, etc., rather than delivering large lectures that never really engage staff or students. Anyway, this gives more time for the interaction in smaller group sessions. Sounds great, Ian, if you'd like to share a bit more.
I think probably the key to that was that we did, obviously through COVID, we had to move to online provision and so on. So we've developed a lot of videos, a lot of shorter materials, accessing a lot of other material on links and so on for students. And I think that's the way we're going forward. And it's interesting reading sort of stuff even in, I think it was today's Wonky, that was talking about surveys where the number of students engaging in lectures is reduced, and rather than just carry on battling with the whole idea of a lecture, we've just moved quite notably away from that and focused more on the smaller group interactions. I think my definition, which I've had for a long time, of a lecture is the purpose of a lecture being to get the information from the notes of the tutor to the notes of the student without going through the minds of either. And I think we've tried to sort of recognise that and move away, and it seems to be working, but obviously we've only been doing it through this last year. So we'll find out a bit more when we get further detailed feedback from our students.
Actually, thank you very much. And I was going to say to you, how are you collecting that feedback? Is it through a formal process, like through a survey, or has it just been in the tutorials as well?
There's always the informal bit. We always have our student reps across courses that will give us feedback in informal basis and through course committees. We've also got a short online your module survey. So each module, the students get asked some questions. They're the same questions for all of them. So they're not specifically about that, but there are questions about their learning and teaching experience. So there's opportunities for those and for just general qualitative comments in that feedback as well. And then more widely, we'll be looking at the results from our level 6 students, which obviously doesn't affect HNs particularly, but they've been going through the similar experience through the National Student Survey. So we'll wait with bated breath for that one in July.
Great, thank you. And it's interesting, isn't it, that it takes something like COVID for us to, I guess, shift our thinking. I mean, you said before, it's an interesting quote, and I might borrow that one, Ian, about the notes from the lecture to the student without going through the minds of both, if I've copied that correctly.
Minds of either.
Mine's either. But I think there's been a general awareness, hasn't it, for quite some time that this has been occurring, and that lectures are not the best way. I mean, there's obviously they have their place, but I mean, I've been through university a couple of times now myself, and yes, it's trying to remain focused throughout a couple 2-3 hour lecture is always been quite a challenge. But as I said earlier on the call today, that there are some benefits to the last couple of years, and it's that shift in thinking, and the way we deliver as well has changed, and to be more flexible. So again, yeah, appreciate your input today, Ian. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Just looking through your questions, I think that's the main bit on the first one. I don't think we've changed our HM provision particularly recently. I mean, unfortunately, one of the things we are finding is a bit of a reduction in the numbers on HN provision coming forward. I think over the last few years, a lot of students that perhaps would have looked to a level 5 qualification, so an HND, probably can now get access to a degree at level 6, and doing that, whether that's right for them is a different question completely, but it has still got that greater kudos of being able to be on a bachelor's degree as opposed to an HND. But I think there is a need for a better skills workforce. We are working as well now to HTQs, still early days, although I think we're going to have to climb this hill pretty quickly. So it was interesting, some bits around there that we were talking about, especially around how this works between the Pearson, obviously IP owned HNs and those of us through licensed providers, which possibly use the same titles, although in some areas it's almost inevitable that they're the same titles, with things like computing and quantity surveying and so on. And we can tweak them, but I'm sure we can't figure, I don't know, was there 30 licensed providers or something? I'm sure we can't come up with 30 different variations on computing to make sure we're all different. So interesting with the comments with Yasmin earlier that we'll, and Claire, that we do need to look at that. And actually, I'm not particularly sure that there's an issue with us and Plymouth, for example, doing something of the same title that is slightly different. I can see the perspective that you wouldn't necessarily want exactly the same title for us and Plymouth and Pearson itself doing it, all having different versions with exactly the same title. But well, we'll see how that works, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a new frontier for us, and we don't want to be seen as, we own these titles and therefore we're not going to share them, with you. But yeah, we're willing to work with you in terms of making sure that title is appropriate to the need. And again, whether it's fitting in the partner or the college or the HEI's name into that title as well, but we also understand that there's character limitations too. So there's quite a few things that kind of throwing up curveballs for us on that front. But as we said earlier, get in touch with them first instance, and we'll try and work to a common solution. Thank you very much, Ian, for your input. We've only got a couple of minutes left before we hand over to Yasmin for closing comments for today's networking event. Does anybody else have any input that they would like to share with us? Well, I think I'll take the silence as no, so we'll move on. So before I hand over to Yasmin, I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. It's been very, very enjoyable, very, very enlightening as well, particularly Brendan Carlson with his input there, and listening to yourselves as well regarding licensed HNs. But I know that Yasmin will probably say similar things as well, so I don't want to step on your toes. So I will hand over to Yasmin.
Thanks, Stuart. Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming together for this online network event today. It's been quite some time since we've had an opportunity to pull all of our HEI partners together for an event, and whilst it's not in person, it has been great to have so many people join the meeting and for us to be able to share quite a bit of information with you. The past couple of years have been quite challenging, but we appreciate that HEIs have had to adapt to the pandemic, and we also want to support both the HEIs and your students through the forthcoming challenges. The HE landscape is changing quite significantly, and we want to be able to be as much as we can on the front foot, but also to bring our HEI partners with us. Partnership is really important, and I know I keep saying it, but it really is important. It very much is a case of we want to work with you. You're all different, you all have different provision, different aspirations for your universities and your students, and we think that we can enhance that with our licensed HN offer. As Jane and Rebecca and Wade and Isabel have already said, the higher nationals are quite unique at level 4 and 5, and they've got such a strong grounding. So we want to be able to share that with you, that reputation, that quality, but you still hold the reins, if you like, in terms of being able to validate, quality assure and certificate students with the higher nationals. So you've got lots of control. And I think that the HTQs are just the next element of that, particularly with the IP offer. We can effectively do the legwork, but that would become a qualification offered by the university, quality assured by the university, and certificated by the university. We don't have all the answers when it comes to HTQs, and we're still finding our way with both our regulated and our licensed offer. But as I said, it's very much a partnership, and we do want to work with you on this. So please do get in touch with us if you are thinking of submitting, or if you're interested in doing the IP version of the HTQs. We're here to help. Raman unfortunately isn't well enough to be here, but she's doing so much hard work trying to drive our license provision and reignite those relationships that, you know, obviously have been impacted on due to the pandemic. Stuart as well is doing a fantastic job making sure that we're all doing what we should be doing, and that we're trying to move the license provision forward. Just a word to say as well about partnership. You will have your own partnerships with maybe colleges that you're delivering with, and if you are looking to add new colleges, change colleges, or just start working with one, again, we can help support with that, and they can be added as a sub-site to your existing provision. So there are lots of things that we can do, and the main thing is just to keep the lines of communication open, so that we can support you in what you're wanting to achieve with your level 4-5 provision. I don't really have anything more to say than that. It's just really closing remarks. But again, thank you so much for giving your time this morning and joining us, and let's just keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. We've got a couple. I'm happy to stay on the call if you've got any questions or anything in the chat. I have put in the link to the feedback form today. It will be available in an email after this session. As I said, we will be providing the recording as well as the PowerPoint presentation. So anything missed today, I'm sure you'll catch it on those two items. So again, thank you very much. I know Raman is very disappointed that she hasn't been able to join today, along with Anna as well, but unfortunately it can't be helped. But again, thank you very much for your time, and look forward to catching up with you again in the not too distant future. Thank you.